Good evening and welcome to the Civil Service Commission meeting for the City of Glendale for April 10, 2024. May we please have a roll call?
Commissioner Hatamian?
Here.
Commissioner Hartunian?
Here.
Commissioner Magrabian?
Here.
Commissioner Reen?
Here.
Chair Gazarian.
Present. Thank you. Next item, please.
Minutes, consideration of the minutes for the February 21st, 2024 meeting.
Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Hatamian?
Yes.
Commissioner Hartunian?
I was not present.
Commissioner Magrabian?
Yes.
Commissioner Reen?
Yes.
Chair Gazarian.
I will abstain. I was absent. Thank you. Next item.
Oral communications. I do not have any cards, nor are there any phone calls waiting.
Thank you. Next item, please.
Recruitment and examination report.
Thank you.
Hello, Mr. Chair and members of the commission. This is the regular recruitment and examination status report, which represents the current recruitments in process and that our team is currently working on. You'll notice that our team has 88 open recruitments, and you'll notice the division of work amongst the team. And the examinations are in various stages of the selection process, and this report reflects those various stages. If the commission has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. Otherwise, this is a note and file item.
Any questions? No. Thank you, Ms. Adams. Next item, please.
Eligible list established for March 13, 2024 and April 10th, 2024.
Thank you, Ms. Adams.
Yes, Mr. Chair and members of the commission, the subject before the commission is the regular report that includes all of the eligible lists that were recently established since our last meeting in February. This report includes the total number of applications and the number of individuals that advanced through the various stages of our examination process. Since our last meeting, we have had a total of 32 lists that were established. 11 were open to the public. Wait a minute. Yes, 11 were open to the public, 13 were given on a promotional basis, and 8 were given on an open and promotional basis. This is a note and file item. However, if the commission has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you. Any questions? Hearing none. Thank you, Ms. Adams. Next item, please.
Revised class specification series for approval, public safety, business management. And Mr. Chair, a revised copy of this class specification series was provided to all commissioners on your desk.
Thank you, Ms. Adams.
Yes, Mr. Chair and members of the commission, we are here to request your approval of the revised class specification for the public safety business management series, which was last updated in 2012. The public safety business management series comprises non-sworn management positions offering professional level administrative, budgetary, or financial support to the police or fire department. The purpose of this revision is to incorporate the position of senior public safety business specialist as requested by the police department. This role will primarily support the training bureau of the police department, overseeing complex projects and reports related to police officer training requirements. Additionally, the senior public safety business specialist will ensure compliance with the California Commission on Peace Officers Standards and Training, and those requirements that we should adhere to, and they will be in charge of an annual audit. The police department proposes revisions to the duties of public safety business coordinator as well, so that that position can align with departmental needs, because they do anticipate future budgeted positions. The Glendale Management Association reviewed the proposed changes and did not raise any concerns. Therefore, we are requesting your approval of the revised class specification for the Public Safety Business Management Series as submitted. As Mr. Kwan noted, after the agenda was posted, staff revised the original page 16 under FLSA designation to include the Senior Public Safety Business Specialist as FLSA exempt. We have our Deputy Chief, Andrew Jinks, here, along with Russ Kwan from our HR team, and together they can answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you. Any questions?
As for me, when I was reading the list of duties, and we have 4 different positions here with higher and higher levels of responsibility, but all of them are proposed to be classified as exempt positions. So I was wondering, what we want to be sure that we've properly characterized positions as exempt or non-exempt, depending on what the circumstances are. So my question was, how was it decided that each of the 4 positions would be characterized as exempt? What analysis was done in that regard? Maybe that's a HR area to cover.
Yes, Mr. Chair, members of the commission, Russ Kwan, Senior Human Resources Analyst. Commissioner Reen, to answer your question, the Public Safety Business Specialist, or actually I take that back, Public Safety Business Management Series was initially developed off of the Administrative Analyst position, which is I'd say our generalist management position that's held throughout the city. And so the way that we developed the exempt status for it is basically mirroring that of our analyst position in terms of the requirements and the general duties that that position does.
Can you tell us what FLSA exemption is the one that we're applying to these positions? Is it the administrative, executive?
It would likely be the administrative function.
So I guess I'm thinking about this, and it's under the FLSA, it's complicated, and there's a bunch of tests, and you have to look at the specific job duties. And as I read these, I don't know enough about the actual position and what personnel are doing, but it does seem that a lot of these things that, particularly in the lower one, the public safety specialist, a lot of these are really not exempt type duties. Ensures that subpoenas are processed in a timely fashion, prepares commendations, event coordinator. So if legal counsel, I think that with experience in wage and hour law, looked at this, they might think, So then you got to look at what's the primary duty. What is this person doing most of the time? How many people are they supervising? So it's a pretty intensive test to make sure you do it right. And if you do it wrong, there's a problem. So I'm just throwing that out there. I have a level of concern about, not that it's a wrong to characterize this as exempt, but looking at the duties, there seems to be maybe a disconnect.
In our city protocol, before positions come to this commission, when we are creating the position and we are setting the salary, we are going before the city council. During that process, all of our packets and analysis are run through the city attorney's office to make sure that we have categorized the positions and the salary that we're seeking and everything properly. Now, when it comes to this body, we're asking that you look at the duties and confirm that the duties that we have described match the job or the specification that we're putting before you. But the earlier step in the process, which is the city council step, or that process, I should say, is the process through which we run our entire package through the city attorney's office.
So, Ms. Adams, if I may interject, who makes the determination for these specifications to be exempt or not exempt? Is that the city attorney, the city council, HR? Who does that?
HR decides what they believe is correct.
Okay,
But then when it goes through the workflow and it reaches the city attorney's queue, if we have done something incorrect, they will be sure to let us know.
and I believe I heard you correctly. You said that the Management Association was consulted and they had no issues with any of this. Is that
That's
correct?
correct.
So I had a concern because I saw 3 different series here, but I heard my colleague say 4, but I saw 3. Where's the 4th one? I see a public safety business specialist, and I'm looking at the amended version of it, right? What was provided on my desk. Public safety business specialist, then I see public safety business coordinator, and then I see public safety business administrator.
It's the one in red. It's the specialist. That's the fourth one.
It's
They
the
added the
senior.
fourth
Oh,
one.
so there's okay, that's a separate
That's
one.
why
I
it's
thought
in
that was
red.
additions to the prior specification.
That's why it's in red on the
So-
bullet points.
So oddly enough, can somebody tell me, oddly enough, these titles are all impressive, but I don't know which title or which position is in the hierarchy of, compared to others. Public Safety Business Specialist, and I'm looking, when assigned to the Police Department, Office of the Chief, oversees the day-to-day operations of the Chief's executive office. That's pretty significant to me. So is that a low-level position compared to a senior public safety business specialist? Or is that a more important, more critical, higher pay, perhaps larger hours during a week that may make it exempt versus an hourly wage employee? I don't know the answers to those things. I'm just asking.
Correct. Mr. Chair, members of the commission, Andrew Jenks, Deputy Police Chief. The series here is there are 4 positions in this series. Within the public safety business specialist, the duties of the job vary depending on where the individual is assigned. What you're speaking of, assigned to the office of the chief, that individual, that position currently is not filled, but that position was similar to an executive assistant to the chief, someone that would help the chief in day-to-day activities, as it says, scheduling events and as you know,
Attending, I heard.
attending
Serves,
events.
yeah.
It's a management level position within the city. There's also another assignment currently that is assigned to the Training Bureau. And tonight, we're specifically, the police is seeking additions to the description of the, requesting for the senior, these words are, make sure I get it right, senior public safety business specialist is
Right.
what we're requesting. Currently, the police department has 248 sworn employees and an additional 25 dispatchers. These sworn employees and these dispatchers are all required to meet certain California Post requirements in training. They have mandated training. Specialized units require other specific training. Currently, the department employs 1 public safety business specialist assigned to training, and you can see those job description is here in the bulletin. So that 1 person is responsible to make sure that everyone's training is up to date, that they attend the right training, that they're booked for training, that they get into classes, that they manage all the post requirements. They help with setting up our annual post audits, that making sure that we're up to date and complying with our post standards. Our request tonight is for the senior public safety business specialist, which would be an advanced position of a similar job, giving someone a little more responsibility. Addressing the issue right now that we have is we sort of have a single point of contact where we have 1 individual in a position that's carrying a large workload. Having the senior position would give a person more responsibility, more supervision responsibility, training responsibility, so we have more redundancy and making sure that we maintain and meet all of our post standards.
So it kind of begs the question, if somebody's gonna oversee 248 sworn officers, post certifications, continuing educational requirements and compliance, would that person be or not be himself or herself post-certified? I'm assuming this is a civilian position, not a sworn officer or a police officer.
Yes, Mr. Chair, I don't believe the position is a post-certified position. It's a professional management level position, part of the GMA. But that person is responsible for being up to date on all current post policies, procedures, expectations. So it's really becomes a professional expert on post requirements for the agency.
Okay. I guess what I get confused is when you look at the last specification, the last Public Safety Business Administrator. So when I look at that, I look at the very end, represents the chief in meetings and administrative matters. I assume that is referring to the fire chief, because under that, it says when assigned to the police department. That would be something different, I suppose. So this is where I'm getting confused. Assist the chief in selection and promotion of employees by recommending appointments. Which chief? Is that the fire chief? This question is posed to anybody and everybody, not Deputy Chief Jenks, by the way.
Mr. Chair, members of the commission, this title, the Public Safety Business Management Series, is utilized by both departments, by both the police and fire department. And because of that, there is some general language in there where we make references to the chief, deferring to the department head of either respective department.
So general language is fine, as long as it's not boilerplate language, because if you refer to, I'm talking about specifically the last page.
Yes.
6 of 6, okay? The first paragraph, which is a continuation of a paragraph from the page prior. And the last 4 lines commence with a sentence, represents the chief in meetings. So I'd like to know which chief? Both chiefs, perhaps? You know what I mean? So that's what I don't know. So this person is going to float between the fire department and the police department as a public safety business administrator? Yes, no, maybe, maybe not?
Mr. Chair, members of the commission, the police department has a public safety business administrator assigned specifically to the police department. And that individual works solely with police department budgetary matters and would represent the chief, the police chief,
Right.
and the police department.
Right.
And it does not work with the fire department. So this position, I'm not aware if the fire department has the same position, but we have that position within the police department.
And this individual reports directly to the chief. And in sworn ranking, what would be his rank? A captain, maybe?
The
Equivalent to the civilian.
probably a lieutenant.
Probably an LT.
Yes.
I get it.
Because I'll tell you, the public safety business administrator, folks, looks like a very responsible position representing a chief, whichever chief it may be, in meetings, et cetera. But then all of a sudden, when assigned to the police department, it looks like a pretty elementary, because it says make responsible for property evidence retention, facilities maintenance, including the police community room. Well, that's very, very elementary compared to representing the chief in the paragraph before.
Well,
They
Mr.
change the hat when they walk
That's
into
what
a
I'm
different department.
So those would be additional duties specific to the police department in addition to the general essential functions for that classification.
Okay, and by the way, for the record, I'm posing these questions to the extent perhaps my colleagues may or may not have looked at it. I'm not married or divorced to any of this. When I hear Management Association had a chance to look at this and they're okay with it, I trust the judgment of HR and the respective departments that are advancing and seeking approval by this body. So I'm not going to substitute my opinions about how it's drafted, how it should be drafted. I really don't care about that. I'm just creating this dialogue so that everybody is on the same page. When there's no more questions, I ask for a motion to approve, and everybody knows what we're approving. That's all.
Chair Gazarian, if I may chime in. So it's not uncommon for chiefs or higher ups, even a commander, to delegate duties, whether it's to their lieutenant or be a designee or show up to certain meetings, represent the chief. It's just a matter of rank, right? What is this individual equivalent to in the sworn world? If they're like a sergeant, unlikely you'll find it in their class specifications that they can do this for the chief. But if they're lieutenant and above, and I guess that leads me to my next question, and I guess it's more geared towards Mr. Kwan. Do we know if in the lieutenant classification we have similar language that the lieutenants can represent the chief in similar types of meetings? Because that's essentially what you're talking about. This individual is at the rank of a lieutenant and is reporting directly to the chief. And that's not uncommon. They'll delegate duties to captains and lieutenants, but you don't want them to be a low classification because you want them to have the expertise and knowledge to be able to, represent the chief accordingly in these meetings. And I believe that may be your concern.
It is.
Can this person adequately represent the chief, right?
Yes, that's my
And-
concern, but
and
I'm going to
lieutenants
defer.
do. Lieutenants commonly do in the news media and different meetings. The question is this person equivalent to that rank? And if so, does this language is it also contained in the lieutenant classification?
And thank you for that contribution, Commissioner Hatamian. I should say, it's again, just for transparency, for us to understand what it is we're approving. By the same token, I have seen sergeants who are truly capable of doing that task, although they don't have the rank. So I don't have an issue about any of that. I just want us to know what we're going to approve, and for the record, I'm going to vote for approval. But I want everybody to know what we're voting for. That's all. Any other questions?
I do have a few questions.
Before we move on,
Go
I think Mr. Kwan was trying to see if it's similar language with lieutenants. And if so, then it puts them on equal footing, if we have that information available. If not, I think it's presumed that,
While he's looking for that,
okay,
why don't we have
absolutely.
the question posed? Go ahead.
Visually, and this series was a little challenging for me to understand because I guess I'm a very visual person. Never realized that until I started reading this. So we have the hierarchy in the police department. We start with the chief, then we go to the deputy chief, and then we have three boxes, and then we get the senior public safety business specialist, okay? Unfortunately, you have given us 4 bullet points underneath the senior, so I don't know where these other people, the specialist, coordinator, administrator, go. Are they in an equal footing? Are they below this senior person? Does the senior person supervise all 3 of them? None of them? Because there are, the box ends at the senior position and there's no boxes anywhere for the specialist, coordinator, administrator, I immediately had drew a blank because I needed to see it visually and it wasn't there. And so that is the question I'm posing. Where do they stand in relation to each other?
Members of the commission, and I apologize for the confusion. I think when we proposed this, we were focused on the senior public safety business specialist because that's where the changes are being made. But for your clarification, if we start at the public safety business administrator, which in our department, that essentially that person runs our budget, runs the police budget and finances, and that position is under support services, which is not shown on your diagram.
Right.
The coordinator position, which is not filled and currently not open, that would also be in that same office. So that would be 1 step below the administrator. The senior public safety business specialist that we're speaking of here theoretically could be in that office, but in this situation and in the part of the chart that you have in front of you is in our training bureau. So it's an administrative position within the training bureau, which is largely focused on our post-compliance and our post-audit compliance. So it's in a different bureau, and it's under the training bureau, which is under the deputy chief, out of the office of the chief. I hope that clarifies your question.
Just wish I saw those boxes. So the senior public safety business specialist does not supervise any of the other 3 titles that are on here on the bullet points?
The position could may or may not. It could theoretically could supervise a public safety business specialist, or in some cases, we may have hourly administrative employees that may supervise those employees, but they would have supervision, and it would be a management level position.
Okay. The other thing that gives me confusion, and maybe I don't know the city's position titles well enough yet, but when you read specialist, coordinator, administrator, you don't know if they're at the same level, different level, who's on top, who's on the bottom, who's in the middle. And so they're just really wonderfully vague words that you don't really know where to put them. So thank you for, and then on top of that, we don't have the hierarchy, so it was really hard to visually place them where they belong. And I think that's why we're all sitting here confused. But you all know the position, so in your mind, you didn't have to present that because that's not why you were here. But for us, it created a lot of confusion reading these 3-4 pages. And Chair Kazarian didn't even realize that the red was a new position. So it's because of the way it's presented, not because of the way it is. So so visually, I think for future presentations, if you could be a little bit more clear, so visually we can look at it and understand what's going on and not ask 45 questions.
That's for you, Mr. Kwan. Even though she's looking at it.
Yes, and over the next,
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, so, well, maybe I'm a worrywart because I practiced the Fair Labor Standards Act, but to me, if you make the wrong decision, then somebody later on could come and sue the city, and that's what I don't want. I don't want liability. I want to protect the city. That's my interest here. And so, and as we learned in the last meeting, sometimes the job responsibilities, in actuality, they evolve and they change. And so somebody could sue for overtime because their duties changed or evolved, or it's not exactly what it is in paper. So when we're doing a new classification, and I'm open, I don't know everything, and I'm maybe entirely wrong about this, but I think that's a good time to assess it. And so in order to make that proper assessment, we need the people that are actually know the work, and they're going to interface with somebody who knows the Fair Labor Standards Act, and they're going to take it kind of like what I did today when I'm looking at this, and I'm like, I don't think this lower position is exempt. Okay, which exemption are we talking about? And then each exemption has tests, and each test has primary duties. And so I don't think it's our job to do that. And that's what I'm thinking about from the last meeting. But I do think it's our job to make sure that that analysis was done before we approve a new classification. Now is the time to make sure it's right versus depending on something that happened in the past. So I'm open to discussion. I may be all wrong about that, but that's kind of what I'm thinking right now, that somebody should consult with somebody that knows the Fair Labor Standards Act with the appointing authority and make sure we're right, and then we'll approve it.
may I? So some time ago, the city did have an agreement with an outside law firm that did have expertise in FLSA, Lieber Cassidy, and we ran all of these class specifications newly created through them for what you're talking about. We recently updated that agreement, and I'm listening to the feedback both from tonight and the last meeting, and we can commit to returning to that practice going forward to bring you the tests, the analysis, and everything that you're looking for. So I hear that it's an important matter to the commission, and that was a part of our past, and we can certainly make it a part of our go forward as well. I'd also like to note that within the Glendale Management Association, there are no positions accreted into it that are non-exempt.
So now both of you, both Commissioner and Ms. Adams, have alluded to last meeting. I was not here at the last meeting, so I don't know what the relation back is to what discussion. Was it the same matter that was brought last time?
It was a discussion around if a position should have been classified as FLSA exempt or not.
But not these positions.
Not these.
I see.
Different position, same issue.
I see. And hearing my colleague to my right and his expertise about what should or should not be exempt, and his having done homework and having concerns. Now, that raises my concern level. Has this been run by Liebert Cassidy or no?
Public safety business specialist, public safety business coordinator, and administrator, yes. The newly created position that's in the middle of the top and the bottom, no.
I see. Okay. Okay. So everything has been run by safety check, let's call it, other than the one, the red one, the senior public safety business specialist, yeah?
The newly created one that's in the middle of the bottom of the series and the top of the series. It's in the middle.
What do you
So the
call
one
that?
in red, the one in red?
One in red.
Okay, okay. Which I understood to be, from hearing Deputy Chief, a sort of a supervisory position to the public safety business specialist. Because by virtue of its title, it kind of gives it away. It's a senior public safety business specialist and will have supervisory powers. Now, I'm not a labor attorney, but that kind of makes me feel like that's a management position. And my years of being here has led me to learn that management position is exempt. If that is, if I learned correctly, then I'm satisfied. If not, I would like to yield to the colleague to my right.
Well, when you're getting down to that exemption, it depends on how many people are being supervised. And there's actually a calculation in the Code of Federal Regs on that. So you have to look at who's supervising, how many people are they supervising, full-time, part-time, you add it up. And then it has to be primary duty, it has to be these professional type things or the management type activities. And so if you're arranging a conference or doing commendations, that doesn't count. So if you start adding these things up and 50% or more is the lower level stuff, then it's not an exempt position, and that person can work overtime and then in 5 years sue the city. So that's my concern.
I would like to add also, perhaps by adding the senior public safety business specialist position, that changes the hierarchy of the lower level positions to do less exempt job duties, so that we have to run the entire series through Liebert Cassidy just to make sure we have crossed all of our Ts and dotted our Is. Because when a lawsuit does come in, we don't want to say, oh, we should have just done that one extra step versus it's too late now and now we're in litigation. My favorite part of being on the commission is the opportunity to do preventative work, because on my day-to-day work, I do litigation when everything has blown up. And I'm so happy to be here to do preventative work. And we have the excellent resource of Commissioner Wren, who does specialize in this area of law. And he doesn't always make this comment. He's made this comment only twice. So when we do see a position, I would personally feel more comfortable tabling it for 1 month and running it through Liebert Cassidy as a series, to make sure that the entire series is appropriate when you put through FLSA before it's in front of us, because approving a position with this level of concern doesn't make me comfortable.
That's a healthy suggestion. I believe I asked that question earlier. I don't know if I got an answer. Has the city attorney's office, do they generally look at these and give their green light or no?
Not these packets that we bring before the Civil Service Commission, no.
We don't know today if a wage and hour attorney has looked at it specifically for the exempt status. An attorney can look at it without wage and hour experience and say, looks good to me for other reasons. So that is why, since Commissioner Wren has specialized in this area of law and has brought a grave concern to some job duties. For example, last month or during the last meeting, we were able to bypass the concerns because we worked with City Council and the City Attorney's Office, and during our meeting, we took the words out that were concerning. We reworded it so that the job duties remained the same, but they didn't trigger those buzzwords that make it non-exempt. So we were able to solve the problem. I don't know how we can solve the problem through rewording of the job duties.
Well, I feel confident that it is properly designated for the FLSA designation. If it's the commission's direction, I'll follow that direction, but I feel confident that the FLSA designation is correct.
And if I can add, the review of these bulletins are done in a wholesale, not as a one-off. So we present them as not just this one, but a series of them to Liebert Cassidy at various stages and request their review and comment. And if there is a recommendation that we bring it back and make an amendment, that we would. So it isn't each bulletin that is reviewed, but there is a process of regular review of these things. Granted, I think it's been a little bit of time, as Ms. Adams indicated, since the last review. So I would anticipate that we would have them review a packet of them and not just each individual bulletin.
And since we have an extra bulletin, my recommendation would be to run it through a totality of one more review with the series, to make sure that with this new senior position, we're still good.
So essentially, the process would be a periodic review of not just this bulletin, but all of the bulletins that have been approved since their last review. So you see them, they come back and give us comments on a wholesale basis, not an individual basis.
Right.
As far as I'm concerned, I think it'd be beneficial to have a policy that over a period of time that council goes in and talks to the people that are actually doing the work, and then they can apply the law versus something that's just looking at paper and saying, okay, but, which it would be expensive, but maybe it's a long-term thing that it's, there's an audit or some kind of a monitoring of it over a period of time, just to make sure everything is squared away with the city. And if a job position, the actual duties of an employee have changed over time or something, then we're protecting the city from problems in the future.
I would anticipate that as part of that review, if they needed to discuss it with the appointing authority, they would.
Well, where do we go from here?
I'm ready to make a motion.
Any other thoughts?
Just so I could quickly, not to belabor the points, but I do echo and agree with almost everything that's been raised and the concerns, starting from it being confusing. I thought initially it was a revision, then I realized it's sort of a new position. Was wondering between the differences of the duties of this new position as opposed to the regular public safety. And then during the later portion of the discussion, obviously the concerns are even more serious. And if we can get the benefit of the review at the law firm, I'd like to go with that suggestion as raised and summarized by Commissioner Grabian.
Let's hear the motion.
Yeah.
Okay, so I am moving to have the entire series that includes the new proposed senior public safety business specialist to be forwarded to the city's contract attorneys for FLSA purposes, which I believe Ms. Adams said is Liebert Cassidy, to have them look at it and make sure that as a series, it is FLSA compliant, and take the agenda item off for today and bring it back next month for our review with the proviso that it's approved by Liebert Cassidy as an exempt position.
So I have a problem with that motion, and I will tell you up front, I will oppose it, because I don't feel comfortable that this body should direct the city to go to a particular law firm. Maybe they want to go somewhere else, but, they could do whatever they want. Maybe all of a sudden, they have an in-house counsel that is an expert like my fellow commissioner, and he or she can advise them. So I'm okay with a motion to table it and have us be provided with additional assurances to alleviate the concerns we've raised, but let's not make it like go to Liebert Cassidy, go to this, go to that.
I understand. I only suggested them because Ms.
Because they
Adams
said
said
it.
that.
I know, I get it,
that-
but
Right.
they
But
may change their mind.
I am 100% with you. Maybe there's someone at the city attorney's office who's going to be doing the review. I don't
But
care
think-
who does the
I
review.
think Ms. Marbella wanted to speak.
Yeah, I just wanted to add, it would greatly hamper the department's ability to pause each time to go back and get a review. We certainly have expertise in the HR department when it comes to review of these matters. There is a periodic wholesale review of all bulletins for that type of evaluation. So it isn't just this series that needs to be reviewed, but perhaps some of the other ones that you approved in the past several months, or maybe even in the last year, depending on when the last time was that we did that review. And so if the commission is directing HR each time to go back to do an in-depth analysis, a legal review of every bulletin, I can't speak for her, but I think that would really slow down your process in trying to get these bulletins before the commission, because then we'd have to, it would be costly to do it on a one-off basis, and then second of all, it would slow down the process to get these things over to you. The process is such that there is a regular review, not too much time passes in between. You have to say, I think because of COVID and some changes in the department, this hasn't happened in the near past, but certainly the comments, we hear them, and it's an important one. We will continue to pick up that practice again and start the review. But it wouldn't be limited to this series. And if we're just going to wait for that to happen, I don't know that it would happen before the next meeting. So now we're taking this off calendar, and I don't know how quickly they need this bulletin approved. We may be stalled for several months while they do this wholesale review of multiple positions.
I guess my suggestion was not to do it for every position. It was the once in, it's been just very rarely that Commissioner Wynn has brought up this concern. And we all see it as we all see it. And so I'm not suggesting, and I completely agree that would really be it would slow the process down. I'm not suggesting we do it for every position before it's brought before the commission. I'm just saying this specific one. And maybe because of the way it's brought to us visually, that has confused and concerned all of us.
If I may, Commissioner Reen, is it your opinion, based on your training, experience, and professional occupation, that you see a problem with this being exempt?
No. My feeling is that as I read it, that it's a kind of a flashing light that this doesn't seem right. That if I were a plaintiff's attorney looking at this, I'm going, and my guy worked overtime and he was no longer with the department or the city, I'm thinking, this might be a case. Because if you look at the description of the duties, a lot of them are not management type duties. They're pretty low level that pretty much anybody could do as secretary. You don't need any specialized training and maybe not supervising other people to do these things. So I don't think that it's our, as I said before, I don't think it's our job to decide if a classification should be determined to be exempt or not. All I want to do is make sure that a proper analysis was done, and I haven't been persuaded of that tonight, because I think each position has to be evaluated based on what an employee actually doing and the amount of time that they're spent doing those particular duties. It's complicated, it's ambiguous, it's unclear. I guess that's why there's a lot of litigation, because people can make different arguments and come to different conclusions. So it's not just like, well, what's the title? That you go to court and say, well, the title is a management title. No, we're not even relevant. So all I want is to make sure that somebody looked at the Fair Labor Standards Act and then talked to people on the ground and went back and made sure.
Might we, so that we don't delay the progress of our Glendale Police Department, might we approve the class specification series as submitted, with the caveat that we will take our class specifications in groups to our outside experts, FLSA experts, and represent to you if there's any FLSA designation changes that we have to make, that we will be sure to bring those back before the commission.
So here's my thought, Ms. Adams. While I hear concern that the city may be sued, and while I don't want the city to be sued, I've always known, I've understood my position here to be one of looking out for the civil service employees of the city. So by the same token, I do not want a civil service employee to be deprived of some benefit, whether it's an overtime benefit or any other benefit that is otherwise not available to a management level exempt employee. In as much as, approving it or soliciting a motion from one of my colleagues and approving it provisionally with the understanding that while approved, so that it doesn't slow down the respective departments, police or fire, with their administration of their respective offices and departments, the city will undertake, sooner rather than later, a review of this and any other series. Does that seem feasible, Ms. Barbetian?
Yes, I would agree with that.
What about, can we inquire what's as to the level of urgency for this approval? Maybe it's not urgent, and maybe you won't delay the process if we go through the regular process.
Mr. Chair, members of the commission, while this is something we do want to move forward on, there isn't, I can't articulate an extreme urgency that wouldn't allow some delay.
Some delay, a few months, as Ms. Barbetian alluded it might take? Is that going to be okay?
Mr. Chair, we want the commission obviously to be comfortable. We would prefer to move sooner, so we can implement changes. As I mentioned before, this is sort of we've had one person in this position for a long time, and we're really looking to work on succession planning. So it does delay plans that we have.
Yeah.
However, we will work with the commission and Ms. Adams any way you see fit.
Well, you're being a gentleman, and I appreciate it. I heard Ms. Adams' concerns about the delay. I heard Ms. Barbetian's assessment based on her years being advisors to this commission, that it will cause some hardship. And with that, Ms. Adams, if there was a motion, I would be supporting that motion. I don't know. I will ask City Attorney Ms. Barbetian, if there's no motion, then I'll make a motion, but probably will not get seconded. So is there a motion based on what Ms. Adams' suggestion is, our executive examiner, chief examiner, I think that's what it is. Or if there isn't, there isn't. I don't want to, I certainly don't want a department with 258 officers and 25 dispatchers to have one person that you're trying to evolve into 3 or 4 positions, cross-checking with your colleagues in the fire department, to be slowed down when I hear Ms. Barbetian says, and I know how law firms work, I own one. Just because you want something today, you're not going to get it tomorrow. So if it's okay, truly okay, then fine, let's put it off. Otherwise,
Chair Gazarian, if I may.
yeah.
So the information that we're presented, right? And there's a bigger picture as to how much information we get and the decision authority that we have and that we make. So the information that I have in front of me, if I was to ask for additional information from Ms. Adams, and because I have doubt that this classification may be working outside of its class. So although my, let's say, expertise may not be FLSA, I work in employee relations, I process a lot of out-of-class bonuses, and so I'm very familiar with that, right? However, I'm given information that the unions have had an opportunity to review this.
Yes.
Which gives me reliance in that if there was any objections to be raised, at that point, the unions would raise it. Now, if I look at this, can I say, well, there might be some things here for a plaintiff's attorney that may result in an out-of-class bonus. Yes, but I rely upon the information that's presented. So the question is, are we going to be presented with audits, how many people that these individuals report to, what the breakdown is going to be in order for us to have this ample level of information for us to feel 100% comfortable in the decision that we're going to be making? Likely not, because this commission relies upon the information that's provided to us, mainly by the person who's sitting to my left. And so if the question is, do we send this to a particular law firm? And we're not going to mention names because that's up to the city to decide who it's going to go to, right? The other question is that fiscally conservative? Is that even manageable? I work in the government sector. I understand how things work in the government sector a little bit. So you might not have 100% of the information that you need that may be attached as an exhibit in the way court documents, moving documents may be presented, but we rely upon the information that's given to us. So the question is, does the city have a way of being fiscally conservative and reassuring the commission, right? Particularly with the FLSA issue. Whereas not every single classification that we put out is gonna be shot out to outside attorneys to build a city.
That's what I'm afraid of.
Okay, so internally, the question is, in the past, if these types of classifications were forwarded to the city attorney's office, what was it reviewed for? That's a very simple question. Was it reviewed for FLSA? What is it reviewed for? Is it reviewed that whether or not the job specs would be outside of an individual's classification, although we have reassurance from the unions that they support this classification? And so if there's some type of a checklist that's established for the city attorney to abide by or look at and say, yes, we looked at this, and this does not look like it's outside of the individual's job specs, this falls within FLSA, or if it does not, et cetera, and that information is presented to the commission with the cover sheet, the commission relies upon that. Now, at that point, are we gonna have an exhibit book of different kinds of information to give us 100% reliance and have us have the burden of doing that review?
You just read my mind.
The answer is no, because I don't think we bring there's only so much of what we do outside that comes in here, right? And so is the commission open to creating a process where we get that reassurance in a fiscally conservative manner with the support of our city attorney's office and HR? Because I think HR, and to Mr. Kwan's credit, I think you did a phenomenal job. I do think you did a good job. Yes, I do think the org chart could have been a little bit beefed up, so we knew, but I knew that the business safety specialist was going to be reporting to the senior. I did not know, to your credit, whether or not the public safety administrator was going to be reporting to the police chief. That was a surprise to me. But to commend the police department, they've created a very good chain of command for the civilians, because this gives opportunity for the civilians, because sometimes in police organizations, we forget about the civilians. They are the fundamental structure, foundation for that department, and sworn know that. And the fact that there's a chain of command now, that's amazing, because when you come in as a public safety business specialist, you know you can move up that rank, and you don't stop at the lieutenant rank. And that's why I asked, what is this position equivalent to? When I was at the sheriff's department, we had chiefs that were civilians. So long story short, I think we may create a system that's fiscally conservative, that makes sense, that gives Commissioner Ryan and all of us, not just Commissioner Ryan, all of us the reassurance that we need in moving forward. In regards to this, I do think if, Ms. Adams, if this hasn't gone to the city attorney's office, it needs to go to the city's attorney's office. They will make the determination which law firm, on whether or not, if it's even appropriate for a law firm to look at this. They may have expertise, and they can come in and say, yes, it is within FLSA. It is not my job or a Hatamian to cast doubt on that.
So the last 12 years that I've been here, there's been many a commissioner, fine commissioner, who was neither a lawyer nor had, by all accounts, any legal training. It just occurred to me as you're speaking that there are 5 lawyers here. But I could tell you, outside of constitutional law, criminal procedure, I don't think I'm an expert in anything. So you can bring me all the stuff you need, I'm going to rely, as you say, Commissioner Hatamian, on my HR director, my chief examiner, on my city attorney, and what was telling to me that over the years, folks, Management Association has been here disagreeing with specifications. Every time I've made it a rule, when they're not here and they've been consulted and they're not here, okay, then, I'm fine with it. Now, I've never had the benefit of someone that knows this area in the last 12 years as well as you clearly do, my dear Commissioner Ryan. So I'm stuck. I will do what the majority does, but I'm prepared to vote to let the business proceed. We've spent over 30 minutes on this agenda item, if not more. So with closing remarks, and then let's see where we go. Anybody wants to say something?
I just wanted to add that there is a certain level of expertise in this area, and let's not discount that Ms. Adams has worked in this area for a multitude of years, and her years of training and expertise play a role in the decisions that she makes in bringing these bulletins forward. The relationship that we have with outside counsel is one of consulting basis, and so we do have the ability to call them and consult with them and bring them into the fold with some of the more obscure questions, some of the more finer areas of the law. And so all of those, I think what this discussion has done is reminded us that we did have a process in place, that maybe we'd forgotten about it, and that we need to bring that back into the fold, which we appreciate that type of feedback, and we will certainly bring that process back into our routine. As it relates to this bulletin with regard to the timeliness of it, please keep in mind that there is an entire process that goes into the hiring that comes after this. So I suspect that if this is approved tonight, by the time there is a body in place, all of that review will have gone into effect. And so if there is an issue, that will be taken care of first administratively and then brought to you for your review and consideration. And so I just offer that by way of consideration for timing purposes.
That's very reassuring to me, at least. Any other final thoughts? I'd like to move this agenda item. Otherwise, I'm going to table it, but I'm not going. I'd like us to vote on it. Is there a motion to approve, or is there not?
So if I'm hearing correctly, the motion is to approve with the reassurance provided by the city attorney's office that the issues that we raised at the commission will be reviewed. Do we want to report back on that? That's the question
We
for the
will
commission.
report back on that.
And we will report back on that. That's the motion.
That's a great motion. Any seconds?
I will second that. That would make me feel very comfortable with this.
All right. Okay, very well. Thank you. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Hatamian?
Yes.
Commissioner Hartunian?
Yes.
Commissioner McGrabian? Yes. Commissioner Reen?
Aye.
And Chair Gazarian.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Ms. Commissioner Reen. That was very, very helpful for me for the remainder of my time on this body. Next item, please. Thank you, Deputy Chief.
Thank you all.
Next item, please.
Revised class specification and job bulletin for approval, Deputy Fire Chief.
Thank you. Ms. Adams?
Yes, Mr. Chair and members of the commission, before you is approval of the updated class specification and job bulletin for the position of Deputy Fire Chief. The current class specification for Deputy Fire Chief was last revised in 2006 and requires an update to align with the current California State Fire Marshal standards and to incorporate necessary adjustments to reflect contemporary requirements. This includes revising education, training prerequisites, and incorporating boilerplate language consistent with other specifications. Due to changes in offerings from the State Fire Marshal Office, the Fire Department proposes replacing outdated education requirements with the California Fire Marshal Chief Officer Certification. Additionally, the initiation or completion of a task book is proposed as a prerequisite for becoming a strike team leader, crew, a strike team leader heavy equipment, strike team leader engine, or task force leader. The selection process for Deputy Fire Chief will involve a thorough assessment comprising an evaluation of application materials and a three-part interview process: a professional panel, a community panel, and an internal panel interview. Furthermore, the fire chief seeks to publish the job bulletin for Deputy Fire Chief in accordance with the proposed class specification. As this is a sworn safety promotional position, Civil Service Rule 4, Section 3C mandates the commission's review prior to posting. Upon the commission's approval, both the Deputy Fire Chief class specification and the job bulletin will be finalized, and details that include the final filing period will be updated. The bulletin is tentatively scheduled for posting on Monday, April 15th, with interviews tentatively scheduled for Wednesday, May 22nd, 2024. But we, again, will confirm the date prior to posting the bulletin. The Glendale Management Association has reviewed the Deputy Fire Chief class specification and the job bulletin and has not raised any concerns. Therefore, we do respectfully request approval of the revised class specification and job bulletin for Deputy Fire Chief as submitted. Again, we have Russ Kwan here from our HR office, as well as Battalion Chief Stavros, who can answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Ms. Adams. Any questions?
I do have one question for Battalion Chief Stavros. And this is just for my education, since I'm not familiar with fire departments at all, very little. For education and training, it used to have completion of certain S301, S336, S390, and it continues on. Those sections were taken out. Can I ask why?
So in many instances, those classes are no longer offered in that configuration anymore. As Ms. Adams said, the last time this bulletin was updated was pushing 17 years ago. So the classes, the entire State Fire Marshal has revamped the entire education component for all promotional classes within the fire service. So some of those are no longer offered, some of those are rarely offered, you can't find them, and some of those are combined or contained in the requirement for being a strike team leader trainee or the chief officer program.
Very good. So majority of them are not offered, and then the ones that are offered were combined into the strike team certification?
Or the chief officer track.
Got it. And then my second question was the 1 year of experience for chief officer. Has that always been the norm? Just 1 year of experience in that position?
I'd have to defer to HR, I don't remember. I think so.
Mr. Chair, members of the commission, that is correct. As you'll see on page 22, with regards to the education, that remains from the previous iteration of the class specification of 1 year.
Got it. And I see that you guys added the master's degree as a desirable, so kudos for that.
Good.
And those are all the questions I have.
Yes.
I remember, and this is close to the battalion chief as well as my fellow commissioners, I believe it was a fire department classification that we were considering. I believe it was a fire department classification we were considering a few meetings ago, where the training requirements were to comply with whatever the County of Los Angeles requires. Was that a fire department position? Is there such a thing in the fire department that the training needs to comply with? There's something in the County of Los Angeles.
I think you're referring to the deputy fire chief position in Verdugo Dispatch.
I believe so.
Yes.
And I'm not familiar with those exact qualifications, but I will distinguish that job is running the dispatch center, which is above Fire Station 21, and that's not a field position. Most of the classes that you're talking about in this bulletin are all either management or field oriented classes for what they're doing
Thank you.
in the field.
Thank you for that clarification. So I have also a clarification question about, so in the first paragraph under definition, this position used to have the responsibility for doing human resources services, and now they don't. However, now they do have, if you go on the first page, the third paragraph from the bottom, it says reviews and evaluates employees' job performance and recommends appropriate personnel action. So that's when it made me think, okay, well, what were the prior human resources actions, and were they related in any way with the continued recommending appropriate personnel action wording? Because I don't understand. I guess the ultimate question I have is, will this position be responsible to be in the chain of command for discipline?
Yes.
And if they are, would that not be construed almost like a human resources function? Because discipline is a human resources function.
It certainly could be, and I'll defer to Ms. Adams, but that's always done in close coordination with HR.
Right, and over time, there is a high-level civilian administrator. The position is vacant right now, but it is intended to be filled again. But there's a high-level civilian administrator who works directly for the chief. So some of those duties that had previously been assigned to the sworn personnel moved to the civilian administrator, but the team still collaborates.
So even though this position doesn't do those main human resources position, it went to a non-sworn position, they still take part in the disciplinary process, which is why this item, this line is there on the first page.
Yes.
Thank you for that clarification. I just needed to understand. Okay.
Any other question, or is there a motion? No questions, any motion?
I will move to approve the classification as presented.
I will second.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Tamian,
Yes.
Commissioner Hartunian,
Yes.
Commissioner McGrabian,
Yes.
Commissioner Reen. Chair Kazarian.
Yes, thank you. Next item, please. Thank you, Battalion Chief.
Before, may I, Chair, just one 30-second comment? I want to use this opportunity real quickly. I've been involved in a litigation involving the deaths of two firefighters, a captain and a firefighter, outside of the Glendale. And over the last month and a half, I've been involved in over 20, 25 depositions involving firefighters, captains, engineers, chiefs. And I had the opportunity to personally thank the battalion chief, but I just want to use this opportunity again to publicly, the already high level of respect I had for your service has just skyrocketed to, I can't even say to what levels. And I want to thank you again on behalf of myself, my family, our residents, just having had the opportunity to learn so much more about what you do and what it takes for you to keep us safe. So thank you.
It's very kind for you to say that, and it's our pleasure and our honor to serve the community in Glendale.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Juan?
Job bulletin for approval, fire engineer.
Ms. Adams?
Yes, Mr. Chair and members of the commission, before you is approval of the job bulletin for fire engineer. Again, this is a sworn safety promotional role, and so we are mandated by the civil service rules to bring this before the commission before it's published. This bulletin aligns with the existing class specification for the fire engineer role. The outline selection process mirrors one from the 2022 recruitment, encompassing a written test, a practical examination, and successful completion of a fire engineer academy as prerequisites for the promotion. With the commission's approval, the job bulletin will be advertised on April 29th, 2024, and we will accept applications until May 10th, 2024. The scheduled exams are set for May and September of 2024 as detailed in the bulletin. The Glendale Firefighters Association reviewed the job bulletin and has not raised any any objections. Therefore, we respectfully request that the commission approve the bulletin as submitted. As with the last item, we have Russ Kwan here and Battalion Chief Stavros, who can answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you. Any questions? Hearing none. Any motions?
I'll move to approve.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Hatamian,
Yes.
Commissioner Artunian,
Yes.
Commissioner McGrabian,
Yes.
Commissioner Reen,
Yes.
Chair Gazarian.
Yes, thank you. Next item, please.
Request to cancel eligible list, caseworker 1.
Request granted. Go ahead, Ms. Adams.
Mr. Chair, members of the commission, before you, we're seeking approval to cancel the eligible list for the position of caseworker 1. The list was intended for both open and promotional opportunities, and the sole promotional candidate who was listed has already been hired. Consequently, there is a proposal to cancel the remaining open list, a decision supported by the city charter and the civil service rules and regulations, which state in part that eligible lists shall be valid for no more than 2 years and no less than 1 year, unless the commission decides to cancel any open list. Originally established on January 25th, 2023, the eligible list for caseworker 1 had 5 candidates. The Community Services and Parks Department, serving as the appointing authority, has reached out to all 5. All 5 were certified. Among them, the lone promotional candidate has accepted a promotion, while 2 external candidates have declined offers, indicating no further interest. The request from the Community Services and Parks Department to cancel the list aims to initiate a new recruitment process seeking to attract more qualified and currently interested candidates. This approach intends to enhance the efficiency and timeliness of fulfilling the department's needs and filling their vacancies. Therefore, we respectfully ask the commission to approve the cancellation of the open segment of the eligible list for caseworker 1. We have Judith Velasco here, who is from the department, and she is the Workforce Development Administrator, along with HR staff, and Ms. Velasco can answer any questions that you may have.
Any questions? Hearing none. Any motions?
I do have one question. So we had 5 eligible names. 2 were outside candidates that were no longer interested, that we reached out.
Yes.
I apologize. So we had a total of 5 candidates. 2 were from the outside, and we reached out. They were no longer interested. 1 was promoted, and then the remainder?
There were 4 outside candidates.
4 outside candidates.
Right. 2 have been in communication with us to say that they're no longer interested. And the other 2 we've not heard from, so we are presuming they are not interested at all.
They're more uninterested because they don't even want to get back to you.
Got it. Just want to make sure nobody's on band 1.
There's nobody left on the list.
Yeah, that makes.
That,
Doesn't it cancel on its own though? Is there's no rules that will, if you've exhausted the list,
It
you
will
can run a
only
new
cancel
exam?
on its own at the 2-year mark. But if the list has been in place for at least 1 year, we can ask the commission for permission to cancel and do a new recruitment.
Motion to approve?
I'll second.
roll call?
Commissioner Hatamian,
Yes.
Commissioner Artunian,
Yes.
Commissioner McGrabian,
Yes.
Commissioner Reen,
Yes.
Chair Gazarian.
I end as I began. Granted. Next item, please.
Reports and information, employee job performance evaluations, past due aging report for March 13th and 2024 and April 10th, 2024.
Ms. Adams.
Before you, Mr. Chair, and members of the commission, is our standard informational report on performance evaluations and the return status for Glendale employees. As you can see, once again, the return rate is very good. Last month, when we canceled the meeting, there were 3 people on the second notice list. This month, at the publishing of the agenda, there were 2 evaluations on the second notice list. However, as I sit here today, all 5 of those evaluations have been prepared and served upon the employee, and so there are no longer any evaluations on the second notice list. This is a note and file item. However, if the commission has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Any questions? Hearing none. Thank you. Next item, please.
Civil Service Commission staff comments.
Thank you. Any comments?
No comments.
I'd like to briefly thank the city of Glendale for initiating and taking care of the commemorative efforts this month for the Armenian Genocide's 109-year commemoration. It seems like it was yesterday when the city did justice to the injustice by commemorating the centennial, and I know there are some city-planned events and organizations within the city, and I want to thank the city in advance for their efforts and continuing efforts. Thank you. Next item, please.
Closed session, Public Employee Discipline Housing Technician.
Thank you, Ms. Barbetian. How do we do this again every time I get?
Well, if I may, Mr. Chair, the closed session item has been taken off calendar tonight
Okay.
because the matter has concluded, and we will renotice when the findings report has been finalized.
I'm sorry, was this, I wasn't here last time, and there was an item. Did that item get taken up and got heard, everything?
It did.
Oh, okay, good.
And it concluded yesterday.
Oh, that's great.
And so at the moment, we're waiting for the findings to be drafted.
Okay,
And we hope to have that ahead of the next commission meeting. And if we do, it'll be agendized for that.
Okay.
You'll have an opportunity to review the findings, deliberate, and then hopefully issue your ruling at that time.
can these findings be emailed to us before we arrive here? so
We
that
will,
don't
we
take
will
time?
do our best to get that to you ahead of time so you have an opportunity to review.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you. Then with that, I'm looking for a motion to adjourn.
Just keeping in mind, when you do receive an email, there would not be a deliberation
Right.
electronically that will be done here.
Yes. So is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
We are adjourned. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, I gotta run back to the hospital. Thank you. Here's the pens, here.
We'll leave it at that until we deliberate.